Dylan, what's going on?
Hey Bart, it's going good.
All right, Dylan. So where is this one played out of?
This hand is played at the Aria in Vegas,
Okay.
and stakes are 2-5, and the effective stack is 1,000 hero covers.
So 2.5 at the area. This is a 1K cap buy-in, right?
No, this is actually a
Oh,
1,500 cap.
1,500. Okay, buy-in. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. But you're 1K effective.
Yes, correct.
All right. So 1K effective. And all right, go ahead.
All right, so the action is the low jack, main villain, opens to 20. The hijack calls, who is the by far the loosest guy at the table, just kind of a loose, middle-aged guy, very loose passive. Was seeing a lot of just junky suited bullshit basically from this guy. He was very wide. And then Hero on the big blind opts to call with the ace of diamonds and deuce of diamonds. Now, I guess I could sometimes opt to 3-bet squeeze here, given the looseness of the middle guy. But this time we decide to just flat.
So low jack to 15, hijack calls, hero in the big blind with ace, deuce of diamond, calls, right?
No, opens to 20.
Opens to 20. Okay, so 20 call. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about ace deuce suited is really one of the worst suited aces. I mean, I remember doing an old episode of Top Section, one of the sort of the high stakes podcasts that we used to do about optimal play. And we went to, I remember Conlon and I did this whole episode about like rank the suited aces. And ace deuce was actually the worst, I think even worse than ace six. So now the only thing about big blind 3-betting here is really in the newer school thought, it's actually the one place you can, in theory, are allowed to go a little bit more polar than the other positions, just because you have a lot of medium strength hands that you're going to call with. So you could probably sometimes take like a blocker type, 3-bet here, but I would mostly call here. So I've got no issue with that. Looks like we're going about $60 to the flop.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess there is one thing that I should note about this villain, and kind of the Vegas as a whole, is that I feel like the players are rather unbalanced with their open raise sizing. Like you'll see a lot of $15 opens, but then I saw just many showdowns from many different villains who open to 20 and then always end up with like the topmost of their range.
Really, you
Now,
think
I
they're basing their whether their open sizing based upon the strength of
Oh
their hand?
yes, yes,
Interesting.
100%. I saw many instances of that, of being unbalanced with open sizing.
So you thought this one was a little bit stronger then?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to the flop.
All right, so the flop is the six of diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
five of diamonds, and three of clubs.
6 of diamonds, 5 of diamonds, 3 of clubs. So you flop the nut flush draw here, and you've got a sort of a gutter to the bottom end of a straight here, right? 6, 5, 3, and you have an ace deuce of diamonds.
Correct.
Okay.
A hero decides to check,
Mm-hmm.
and then the low jack opener bets 40 into 60,
Okay.
folds back to the hero, and the hero opts for a check raise to 120.
So hero raises to 120, which is obviously 3x. The only thing that I would say about this here is that, I mean, here's the thing, like, if the villain in this hand has an overpair, I mean, you've got obviously a boatload of, like, say if he's got like kings or queens, right? Like you have a boatload of equity. With 2 cards to come, you're probably a slight favorite. It's probably really close, right? Got to do a 4, diamonds, and an overcard too. So don't forget about that overcard. So whenever you have like equity that's approaching 50% in a given situation, and it's not it, and it's, I mean, there are situations where a guy's never going to fold, but that can never be the case on the flop. I don't think in this particular situation, it's probably can't be all that bad, especially if you don't lose to some of the airball ace high C bets, like an ace king or ace queen that you need to sort of just, get out of the hand. The only thing that I would say is, so I have no problem with the checkers, but the only thing I would say is just along with that backstory of what you were talking about with, oh, it's more likely to be a strong hand, and also the fact that he is c-betting this particular board into 2 people sort of lends me to think that he actually is more skewed towards, whether value, most likely over pairs, but some other value. And you also block some of the whiffs like the ace, king, ace, queen. That's just something of note. And especially when you said the 20. So, if it was very close or something like that, you might want to put this one into a call for those reasons, just like a little bit of added, background if it was ever close.
Absolutely. Yep.
So you go to 120. Okay.
And then the villain tanks for just a little bit and then calls.
So villain calls, and now we are at what, 300-ish, something like that, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right. So then we get a rather interesting turn, being the ace of clubs.
So the ace of clubs here comes on the turn. Okay.
Yeah. So now, based off of the range that I put this guy on, I ranged him at a lot of suited diamond broadways, as of like for the hands with really no showdown, some 6-5, and then overpairs. Is his range that I'm putting on right now. I feel like that a lot of sets from this villain might choose to 3-bet on the flop. He didn't really seem like the type that would really slow play a lot, but at a full frequency. But it's kind of hard to say. But he certainly could still have some sets still. So Hero chooses to bet 250, which, looking back, I honestly believe to be somewhat of a mistake. But at the same time, we kind of have like one of those weird mergy value hands that can bet and maybe get called by worse, but also we just have a whole lot of equity on this board anyway versus his range.
Yeah,
so,
this is a very interesting turn card when I was looking at this, because I don't know off the top of my... Again, it's funny they talk about like the GTO Wizard came out with a AI that's coming, the whole browser type solution. Part of the reason why I don't go into the depths of solver stuff, I mean, it's super applicable to a lot of live play, but a lot of those tools, it's not just so easy to accurately punch in a scenario and get a real answer. People try to shortcut things and you get bullshit in, bullshit out. But with that AI thing coming, and if it actually starts to work and improve himself, it would be a very interesting thing. The reason why I bring that up is because I find this turn card kind of interesting, because at the face of it, I was like, oh, maybe he checks here a lot. But then I started thinking about this more. On the turn here, they would not want to have a diamond giving you more diamond draws. I'm not exactly sure what I said before, but they still have to call down just because the ace comes, I think. So I think you get to bet a little bit on the larger side. This is just my gut reaction. I could be wrong, but that's my thought process, that when you check raise flop here, so forget about the whole optimal thing, but just bringing this into a live dynamic, I don't know a whole lot of players that are going to call a check raise with kings, queens, jacks, and then fold on this turn card, because the population isn't going to find a whole lot of ace X check raises here on the bluff like you did, right? A lot of it's just calls. So I think you do continue to get called a lot here by overpairs on this ace, which kind of makes me tend to think that I want to go, sort of like 2/3. Now, it is interesting, like depending on what comes out on the river, like if you've run out of value or something like that, because to be honest with you, the only ace here that he probably really runs into, he can't have front door diamonds because you have it, right? So maybe like ace 7 or ace 4, and it could be ace 7, only ace 7 of clubs might, well, it's a gut shot with an over, maybe ace 7 and ace 4, right? And so there's not a whole lot of ace X represented here from in the villain's perspective. I just think it's an interesting turn card. So you go 250.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I 100% agree, and and I appreciate everything that you said for sure. And I was thinking, like in game, I also can still have plenty of bluffs here, and in a way, the ace sort of is a brick, because he should fold out, as we talked about on the flop, a lot of his just ace high, mindless c bet type of hands.
Right.
So he ends up calling, and then we go to the river.
All right, so villain calls. So that's interesting. Like, what do you think he has here?
So after this call, I still put him on a couple of overpairs without a diamond, because in theory, to my understanding, was that the ones with the diamonds would want to fold more, as they block more of my potential draws that I could have on this board. So I still range him on a few overpairs that he could have, along with some suited broadways of his own.
Well, of the diamond just diamond draws, right?
of the diamond variety,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And he has about 600 behind still.
Okay. This is actually probably not one that's very hard to sort of stick into some sort of solver because it's only 100 big BBs. I just wonder out loud which specific overpairs are supposed to be folded off in theory on turn. And it would probably be 2/3 sizing. Like you went kind of close to pot, which might be a little bit. You went 75, 80, but yeah, and I tend to agree with you. It would be those overpairs without the diamonds. Okay, so 800 here to the river.
Yep, 800 to the river.
Hmm.
Villain has about 600 behind,
Yep.
610 to be exact. And the river is the six of hearts.
Six of hearts. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So at this point, I actually think this is a decent river because a lot of his slow played sets that he could have that I arranged him on, like sixes, fives, maybe threes, but the open to 20 kind of led me to believe that that could be showing up at a lower frequency. It really reduces the combos. So I felt decent about my hand. And given his range, I believe that he's now going to be really polarized to full houses, just the overpairs that will just check back, or missed diamond draws of his own. So we decide to check, as I don't think I can get value from any of the overpairs that I guess would have been on the flop at this moment.
Yeah, let me just interject here for a second. It is definitely questionable whether or not you can go. I mean, he only has a pot size bet left. Let's just flip it back to the turn. If you had taken a blockish, like 1/3 turn sizing here, or had checked and it had gone checked back, I think checked back on turn, I think there's a clear value bet at the end. You're going to get bluff caught a lot here. I think because, obviously your combos of two pairs and sets there's less, and, you went check on turn or used block sizing, and really all the draws bricked out, right? So, if you go 1/3 on turn, I think you have an easy, probably again, like 1/3 on river bet. It's debatable to me here with 600 left and the pot being 800, whether you still could bet here, maybe not for all in sizing, to try to target overpairs here. So there are certainly times, because this is a hidden one. So whenever you check raise a draw with an ace in it, and your opponent defends to your check raise, and the texture of the board is such that he most of his defend range is going to be overpairs, like a good most volume of combinations, right? And the ace doesn't interact with the draw, like it doesn't interact here with the draw, right?
Yes.
Besides if you had check raise not flush, it's kind of it's debatable to me, like whether they're going to fold those overpairs. If you sort of picture this, but you did go so big on turn to 250. I don't know if we see queens, kings like call and then fold out at the end, but it's probably pretty close. Now, the reason why I'm in live play, like I'm not a huge fan of check calling the river, although I think you've set this up correctly, is because people don't value bet. They don't value own themselves enough, meaning they don't value bet a worse hand. Like that's not going to happen here. You're not going to have kings value bet, right? If it goes check, he's going to check it back.
Yep, 100%.
Or they're going or they don't bluff enough. And here you're kind of just hoping that he bluffs, but there's not a ton of combos really it's just front door diamonds, right? That you're kind of hoping for. It's kind of, I don't, unless he's just out to lunch. I don't know if he's like, calling with, c-betting like king, queen of clubs, calling your check raise and then, picking up clubs. It really probably shouldn't be on this texture, shouldn't be a bet call for a check raise, especially it's not like you min raised it. So, I don't exactly know what he's going to bluff with here. Now, there's another option here though, Dylan, too, which I don't know if you necessarily accounted for. You could check fold. I always try to bring this up on Crush Live Poker, where you can check the river with the intention of check folding, and the right situation to do that is when you think that it's gonna go check. Well, several things have to be set up. You think you've run out of value, right? That's debatable. If it goes check, you're gonna win. But if you check and your opponent bets, there aren't enough bluffs where you feel like the pot odds dictate a call. Then it becomes a check fold. So you could have a situation where You check the river and you're going to win 80 or 90% of the time, but the 10 to 20% of the time your opponent bets, you fold. That's like another one that people don't necessarily find. I always, like I said, go back to No Limit Deuce to Seven as a great example of this, because there's less information where you raise a pad hand from up front, you pad, a guy draws one, you check the river, he bets, and then you just fold based upon the betting. So I don't know if you had necessarily considered that. I mean, obviously it's going to depend with sizing too, right?
Yep. And I thought about that a little bit, and I agree with you 100%. Is that the population tends to not bluff enough. This current villain was really an unknown, so I wasn't too aware of his tendencies. But what does happen is that he ends up jamming for his 610-ish effective stack.
By the way, so villain jams. By the way, as I look back at the hand, I said there's another option, which is check folding. This might not be the hand where you do that, because how does he get here? If you have nut diamonds, how does he get here with something that he's value betting that's just like, ace, king, ace, queen? I suppose it would have to be, because it can't be backdoor clubs, right? Because the ace of clubs comes out. So I think that what I'm saying is a viable thing for people to think about. It might just not be applicable to this hand as I look at the board distribution here, because it's like, what is he getting here, necessarily with? So, but in this particular case, he could be very, very polarized, right? And, you have to decide whether or not you're going to call or fold. I mean, I guess it's the same thing where you can check fold, but it is very polarizing. Is it troubling that you have front door diamonds here with the ace deuce of diamonds? And then I would say, is it also troubling? I think it might even be more troubling that the ace of clubs comes on the turn, which means that he can't have backdoor nut clubs. And again, if you give me the fact that he's not bet calling with like queen jack of clubs here, then you've got to really go into the weeds to find the bluff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So in game, I tank for a few minutes, and I was counting the combos that he possibly could have. I came up with 7 combos of boats, so being threes, fives, and then aces too. 1 combo of quads being 6, so that's 8. Couple of 6-5 suited, and then ace 6 suited as well.
Mm-hmm.
So total combos that I came up with was 11.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, if we could ever take some of these out at a certain frequency, as they would probably fast play on the flop or just jam the turn himself.
So let's just make it even, and let's just say maybe you took out more, but just for the people who are trying to follow us along, how you would figure this out. Let's say that he has 10 value combos, okay? So if he has 10 value combos and he's betting 600 into 800, he's betting 3/4 the size of the pot. So in that particular, I mean, you can look at this sort of from a pot odds perspective here, where you are getting 1,400 for 600. So you're getting just under, say, like, 2.5 to 1 in pot odds. So so if he's got 10 value, if he has 10 value combos, can you find 4 bluffs? That would be the 2.5 to 1, right? The ratio.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, and then also in game, I did give him credit for combos like king, queen of diamonds, like just suited kings. 8, 7 of diamonds as well is a very probable candidate. So I felt like given the 6 on the turn, it really cuts out a lot of his value that he could have on this river. And I managed to think of, quote unquote, enough bluffs that he could have here to make this call, which I ended up doing.
So hero calls. Okay.
Yes.
And the result?
And the result is that the villain had 3s for 3s full of 6s.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you did. I mean, your thought process is there. The question is, do you find the 4 combos of bluffs? And the only thing that I'm going to say to you in this particular space as a takeaway is that, just like you said, that maybe we can't give him all of the 11 combos of value because some of those are fast played. That's a key when you're actually doing the correct combo work. I think on the other side of that, that you had shown so much strength throughout the hand by check raising and betting large on the turn that all of the combos of bluffs that he might arrive with at the end don't bluff because he
Yeah,
thinks he's going to get called. So you have to reduce it down on that side too. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah,
So
and given the low stakes player pool, so to say, I mean how they under bluff, it does make it rather dicey for
yeah.
sure.
Well, I appreciate the call, Dylan. Thank you very much.